Anisha Malik and Mitsuki Yamato's lives had changed in the previous episode of Invasion, and in Invasion Season 2 Episode 2, we learn what was going on in Travante and Jamila's lives. Together with Casper, Travante and Jamila had defied the odds and survived despite being on the verge of death, and the experience left a lasting impression on their psyches. They wanted to forget it and get on with their lives, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't. Therefore, let's find out what transpired in the second episode, and whether Jamila and Travante encounter any difficulties. How did Travante end up in prison? Travante Cole was staying over at his sister Shiona's place, but his mind was somewhere else. He was still dealing with the trauma of what had happened to him back in Afghanistan and also at the hospital, and though he had come back to his home, he felt distracted, and even his wife, Lyra, had realized that something had changed within him. Travante used to stare at the sky and think about what could possibly be the intention of the aliens. He got flashes of the time he had spent with Jamila and Casper, and he just couldn't escape those visions. Shiona was familiar with her brother, therefore she was aware that he wouldn't be at peace with himself until he went out and settled his differences. When her son unintentionally lost hold of his floater and began drowning in the pool, Shiona had planned a party at her home. Travante went into the swimming pool and pulled the young boy out. For a brief while, the boy was still, and everyone's mouths were open in fear. The child eventually vomited out water and began breathing after Travante performed CPR on him. But just then, Travante lost control of his emotions and lost control of himself. He was unaware that he was at home rather than in Afghanistan. He started shouting at the little boy like he was a soldier, and that's when Shiona and others stopped him, and he snapped back to reality. Travante was embarrassed, and he left the scene immediately. Travante still had Casper's book, in which he had made his sketches. Travante wanted to find just that one lead, that one breakthrough that would help him to solve the mystery. It had been months since he had come back to his family, but he was not able to find any clue, which was making him even more restless. Shiona decided it was about time to talk to her brother when Travante returned that evening. Travante was informed that his belongings had been packed, and that he should depart to fulfill his desires. Shiona adored her brother and would never have forced him to go, but in this situation, she realized that he was trapped, and that the only way for him to end the disagreement was for him to go and settle it. Shiona made an effort to persuade Travante that she was correct, and that he was likely at odds with his wife. Shiona was questioned by Travante as to how she could even consider hosting a party, while the entire globe was on fire. Shiona replied that she was well aware of what was happening in the world, but she was still the kind of person who wanted to enjoy the limited time she had with her loved ones, and she didn't feel there was anything wrong with it. In the second episode of Invasion Season 2, Travante found that there were some strange sightings in McCurtain County, following the clue that Casper had left in one of his sketches. Travante wore his army uniform and infiltrated an army base camp, pretending to be a soldier who was newly posted there. Travante was on the verge of making a discovery when he got caught by the guard and was taken to the local police station. The sheriff put him behind bars, and worst of all, he took his bag, which had Casper's journal. What did Jamila find out about Casper? Even though no one would listen to her, Jamila was aware that Casper was still alive. She insisted again that Casper could halt the alien invasion with his abilities, because she had seen what he was capable of. Jamila wished to investigate what had happened to her buddy, but her mother forbade her from doing so. Jamila eventually chose to leave her home without notifying anyone after having enough. She wrote her mother a note that was beautifully written, in which she explained why it was so crucial that she go out and look for her friend. Jamila wasn't somebody who could be influenced too easily, and that is why she believed what she saw, even when everybody else made fun of her and told her that she was hallucinating. When Jamila arrived at the hospital where Casper had previously been housed, she looked over the records and discovered that he had been moved to a facility in Paris. Jamila had optimism since she realized she had been right all along to believe Casper was still alive. When Jamila arrived to a refugee camp, she ran across Darwin and Alfie, two of her pals. When Casper first encountered the aliens, Jamila described what transpired and how he used his abilities to neutralize them. Alfie and Darwin made the decision to travel to Paris together so that they wouldn't abandon their pal in their time of need. Darwin and Alfie took Jamila to a garage where they knew there were a lot of cars kept, and surprisingly, it turned out that it belonged to none other than Monty Cuttermill. Jamila and Monty had a touching talk at the conclusion of episode 2 of Invasion Season 2, in which she confided in him that she could still sense Casper in her thoughts. Because of her vivid dreams about him and her keen intuition, she was able to determine that he was still alive. Monty and his sister also consented to travel to Paris with the group, as well as the other two. Jamila was informed by Monty that they may stay in his father's Paris apartment while looking for Casper. Darwin and Alfie had no choice but to invite Monty because he was the only one who could drive. In the upcoming episodes, we will get to know if Travante is able to escape from the prison or not, and if Jamila is finally able to find Casper and figure out what was happening with him.